Okay, I'm going to show you a little demonstration of the Skaldic project database and some related projects I've been working on. Now, the homepage gives some basic information about the project, including links to our published volumes and some photographs of them there, and a few of the bodies that have funded the project. Most of the useful information, however, is in the database itself, which I'll bring up now. There are some statistics here which might give you a sense of the kind of scope of this project. Skalds or poets, lots of poems, about 6,000 stanzas, a corpus of some tens of thousands of words. Now, hundreds of thousands of words. These are linked to manuscripts, manuscript readings, explanatory notes, other sorts of concordances and so on. As you can see, we've reached a milestone in the corpus of having entered over 2/3, and about 1/3 of the corpus has been published so far, with more coming very shortly. Most users will be interested in just browsing or searching by poet and so on. So we can just simply browse there. We can search for poets such as the famous Bragi Bodisson, the 9th century poet who is credited with inventing the genre. For the poet you have a biography, which appears on the left there, and a list of poems, about which there will be an introduction and some other information, including basic presentation of edition and translation. If we look at one of these stanzas in more detail, we see the amount of information that's associated with each verse. So here, Bragi's 3rd stanza, Ragnar's Tralpa. With each word, you get normally a dictionary head word, so it's lemmatized, a series of variant readings where relevant. Here, the manuscript W has a different reading, and relevant notes that go with the particular word. And this is the case for all of the words. There's information on the text, the prose works in which it appears, manuscripts and editions. For the manuscripts, we'd like to have a translation of everything, and we've also got images of each manuscript page. So for example, just click on one of those and it'll bring up the page with the appropriate stanza on it and references to it there. Just go back. In some cases, we have the actual stanza marked on the manuscript page. So there's a little mark here for where it is. You can see this also on the digital image. So Knat ur vid itlam, the transcription there. So you can go between the original sources, the published work quite easily. Clicking on that should take us back. One of the useful things about this is that you can edit all of the information associated with any of the data through the same interface simply by clicking this pencil. You can see for the verses, this is the most complicated data in the database. They have quite a few forms associated with them. So you can edit the text of each, including, for instance, the prose context using a WYSIWYG editor. You can edit the manuscript information, including transcriptions, the notes on each stanza, again using a WYSIWYG editor, and the variant readings for each word, which are shown there. So all of these are linked back to the words. There are more complex forms for editing the text. So for instance, this form is used to link the verse version of the text with the prose word ordering which we use, and likewise with the translation, so that the two are linked together for the purposes of glossing and so on. kennings, these nominal periphrases, are indexed here, so they're automatically marked up and the referent is chosen. It's also here that we link each of the words to a dictionary head word in a form. The process of data entry is quite complicated, but we have some very efficient people doing it. And you can see the grammatical information is entered here. So going back to the text itself, another feature is that the printed version of the corpus of the edition is generated automatically from the database. So these links here will show you, for instance, what it looks like when it's exported for the book. So it's formatted in a way that's useful for print publications, so on. Now, there's a lot of other information linked with this. You have a list of prose works. So, for instance, we have the text in which the verse appears, because most of these standard verses appear within the context of prose works. For some of them, we have other information such as a stemma, and in some cases the actual prose work itself is included in the database. There's the stemma for Sverris Saga, for example. Manuscripts also have a lot of detailed information with them. If we click on one of these, you get a list of the prose contents of the manuscript as well as the verse contents of the manuscript and all of the images associated with it. So you can again go back and forward between these. And if you click on one which has verses on it, it will list the verses that are on it. There are other things, editors. You can also search the content of printed volumes, and we have a great deal of the front and back matter also included, so including bibliographies and so on. It's quite an extensive bibliography. So among other information that might be of interest, there's an index of various things. So for instance, people, places, and these are also mapped just in case. Some places are more obvious than others. So for instance, more obscure place names such as this. There's a metrical concordance, a line type concordance which is in progress, and various other things. The kennings, these nominal periphrases, are indexed, so you can see, for instance, all the kennings for apostle. These are grouped according to Meissner's categories. So you can see, for instance, the kennings for stone or jewel, anvil of the river, river limb, knob of the underfishing grounds, hard shoulder lumps of the mistress of Hergoter, and so on and so forth. Also kennings with named people as reference. So for instance, you can see all of the kennings for example, Odin, Randvjar's killer, swinger of Gungnir, etc., etc. Now, I've used this database, as I mentioned at the beginning, as a kind of framework for developing other databases. An early one is this text database, which I have a few colleagues in Denmark working on. These produce parallel texts where there are lots of different versions in complicated arrangements. So for instance, Agelandasauter, you can select various versions and it will show them in a tabular format so that you can compare here the French original with two Old Norse versions of it. Also of interest is a runic dictionary. This is based on some data I got from Nottingham. They asked me to form this into a new browsable interface. So this is a dictionary of words in the corpus of runic inscriptions. So for instance, you can browse through the word list and it will give you a map of where the words are with links to the particular inscriptions. Here the ones mentioning barn or child. Likewise ones bjarga, to save or preserve. And this allows various sorts of diatopic analyses of the corpus. So these link back to the text of the runes themselves, often with images, although not in this case, possibly in the next one. No, I can't find ones with images, but there are often images of the runic inscriptions, for example. And I'll show you one more of these projects. I've created a set of resources for students learning Old Norse. There's a companion handbook that comes with it, and if you go, here are the texts that are so far produced. Hrolsaga Kraka, you have a text that students can use. The handbook has a glossary that's generated from the database, and this allows also you to link the words to the glossary. And there's grammatical information included there. There's also audio, in many cases, of the verse, recorded by colleagues in Iceland and Britain. Ekki höllin svo vel skipuð sem mig ætlaða, að eitt dýr skal hér eyða. This allows students to hear how the text would have sounded in Old Icelandic, or at least modern Icelandic of Old Icelandic. The grammatical information that's included here is used as the basis of a grammatical quiz that's automatically generated. Now this randomly chooses a word, here halska, which a student can then answer grammatical information about. Now this I think is a masculine noun, yes, but if you get it wrong it comes up with a warning. If you get it right it comes up bold. I presume this is accusative, yes, so you can see how that goes. Okay, now there's not much else to tell you about this. We have photographs on the website of various symposiums that we've had over the years. You can see here photographs from our first symposium 10 years ago in Reykholt in Iceland, the learned ladies of the project and so on. We've had a lot of fun over the years basically, but that's all I'm going to talk about today.